Hi there, it's the Common Magician. I wanted to teach you something about shuffling. Just a little bit of a lesson here on shuffling. If you take a deck of cards, usually in a card game, you'll notice that people, especially people that don't handle cards a lot, will shuffle cards like this. This is what's called an overhand shuffle. It usually looks pretty good. I mean, it looks like the cards are being shuffled, but it lacks something. There's a lack of verifiability in there. You can't really verify that the cards are changing position very well unless you're looking real close, because the backs are all the same. So as you go through, you know, it looks like they could be changing, but it's hard to tell. On the other hand, see, if I have the cards facing this way, you can see that as I'm shuffling through, the card faces are changing, right? This looks like something's going on here, that there is change happening. There's some verifiability to that. If you take a look, you'll see what's going on, that actually all the cards are indeed switching positions, right? Now, likewise, same thing, if I were to do this, where I'm taking cards and I just turn them randomly into each other, so some cards are facing up, some cards are facing down. This is what we call a slop shuffle, and the reason why we call it a slop shuffle is because it's very sloppy. You can't really tell what's going on, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. Some cards are going one way, some cards are going another way, small groups, big groups, and it's a total mess, as you can see right there. In fact, if we take a look at it very quickly, I can show you that some cards are facing down, like this spot here, some cards are facing up. There may be a spot here, I don't know, where cards are face to face or back to back like they are right here. Maybe even face to face like they are right here. It's all a mess. But the truth of the matter is that I'm fibbing to you. I'm telling you a bit of a lie. You see, it seems like it's verifiable, but really if you look, everything is facing the same way, right? There was a lack of verifiability. I really didn't let you get a good look at what I was doing, okay? Now, I want to show you a verifiable shuffle. We're going to try something with absolutely 100% verified shuffles, okay? And the way we're going to do this is kind of interesting. We need 3 piles, roughly the same number of cards. We'll see here. Again, it doesn't have to be exact, but we want it to be about the same. So 3 piles of cards, roughly the same size. Again, we want to make sure these cards are nice and mixed with each other. This is about the same size, I guess. Maybe something like that. Okay, so we have 3 piles about the same. I think it matters that they're pretty equal. What I want you to do is I want you to just pick 2 piles, any 2 piles at all. And let's say you picked, I don't know, these 2 piles, the 2 outside ones. We'll set this one aside for a second. Now again, you want verified shuffles, right? So you can see that the cards are actually interlacing with each other, that they really are shuffled up, right, on both of these piles. Not only independently on these piles, but we're actually going to mix the piles up a little bit. What I would have you do is I would have you take a few cards, about half of the cards over here, pick them up, and any number you want, and then put them over here facing the other way. And then I would have you do the same thing on this pile. So again, about half the cards, turn them and face them the other way. What we're going to do is we're going to mix these piles together, right? In no particular order, just give it a good table wash. Same thing over here, so that it really doesn't make any sense. There's no rhyme or reason to this, okay? And I'll have you do the same thing again. Just pick up a few cards from over here, right? And we'll put them over here. A few cards from over here. We'll turn them upside down and put them over here, and we'll shuffle those together. So far, so good. Would you say that this is verified shuffling? I would hope that you would, okay? Now, I have these remaining cards over here. Again, these cards are also shuffled together quite fairly. I have these other remaining ones. I want you to just pick one of these piles, one of these other piles that we were working with. Let's say that you pick, let's say you pick this one. Quite simply, we're just going to shove these cards right in there, right into that pile. We want to make sure that they're well mixed up, that there's no rhyme or reason to it, and that they're all mixed in. Even with these piles that we have remaining, we can take some and turn them over and switch places. We want this really to be a total mess. So we're left with the situation, we've got these 2 piles where some are facing up, some are facing down. It's really a total mess. And we're going to do something simple. We're going to shove them together. So you can see that. Now, I would hope that you would say that this is verified shuffling. right? We have a mess here. Some cards are up, some cards are down. And the way that we got here was completely random. There wasn't a rhyme or reason to it. You made choices. You decided how many. You decided where they went. We decided what was face up, what was face down. Total random chaos entirely. Now, what I want to show you here is that I've had sitting out in full view the entire time this piece of paper with a little bit of a question to it. There's a question mark on it. This is actually prediction. And this is predicting some things about this pile that we've made of cards. And let's see what it says. It would be amazing if I got anything right about this, right? Because it's really a total mess. It's a mess 6 ways from Sunday, as they say. If you take a look here, I wrote down 15 cards face down. 15 cards face down. So I don't know if we have it, but let's make a couple piles here and see. So we'll count the face down cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I don't know if we're going to get there. We may be off. 10, 11, 12. I don't know. 13, 14. The last one is 15. Now, you have to admit, that's pretty impressive that I would be able to predict that. 15 cards face down. But wait, there's more. I have another prediction. See, on the inside, it says 9 cards are red. 9 cards are red. Let's see what we have here. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I don't know, 8, 9. 9 cards are red. Now I know what you're thinking. You're saying, come on. I can't see what these cards are. See, I have another prediction for those. Because with the remaining cards, the remaining black cards are the same suit. And if you take a look, you'll see that all of these cards are indeed the same. They're all clubs. Club, 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 club. That's a problem right there. Now it would be a problem. It would be a problem if it wasn't for the fact that I have one more remaining prediction. If you take a look on the inside, the remaining black cards are the same suit, except for one. So we're going to look at shuffleboard today on the Common Magician channel. This is a fairly well-known effect. It's one of these effects that is extremely hard-hitting. It looks really, really good. And the good news for the Common Magician channel is that it is a self-working card trick. Now, the rendition that I showed you is not completely self-working. What I showed you was impromptu. It was something that you could do in an impromptu setting where you could have a borrowed deck of cards fully in use by somebody, and all you would need to have is your prediction and your wallet. And you would be able to do the presentation from beginning to end. It has a little bit of risk to it. It does require a few moves, but they're pretty simple and straightforward moves. Mostly, you just need to keep track of what you're doing. That's the hardest part about that impromptu rendition. Before we take a look at that, I want to give you a little bit of a comprehensive view on shuffleboard here and show you kind of a more traditional variation of it, which is not impromptu, but can be done with some preparation, some pretty quick preparation with a regular deck of cards. And in a sense, the traditional presentation of this can be considerably more amazing to spectators because you can make your prediction extremely specific. The prediction that I gave in my sequence of events was specific enough, but you can be more specific than that. You can be as specific as you want, actually. You can be very, very specific in your prediction and make it all the more amazing if you prepared. So let me show you very quickly the kind of original type bare bones variation of this, which I think hits harder than even the one I showed you. And if you want to perform it in this way, you can, and you'll understand how it works and what to do. You'll find tutorials for this online. It might not have the name shuffleboard with it. Again, it is a pretty popular self-working trick that hits extremely hard, which makes it very popular for magicians, especially card magicians, as long as you're not working with other magicians, because most people understand this principle. But it was an effect that's made popular, made famous by Simon Aronson. And partly because it does use a stack, and he's known for a stack, and it doesn't have to use a full deck stack, but it does use some pre-ordered cards. So let's take a quick look at kind of the bare bones basic rendition of shuffleboard. We'll talk about what the implications are of the presentation and just the very basic way to put this together. Okay, so shuffleboard. This is actually spelled shuffle and then separation. It's not one word like the game, the recreational game shuffleboard. It's shuffleboard as in tired of something, B-O-R-E-D, bored of shuffling, really. And that's kind of the implication of it. This is a routine with one payoff, right? Or actually a very quick burst of payoffs at the very end, one sequence of predictions. But nothing's happening really in the shuffling phase of it. And the shuffling takes a while, and you do a lot of it. And that's part of what really gears you up for the success of the trick. Some people will say they don't like tricks that have a lot of shuffling or counting or dealing and things like that. I understand that. A lot of magicians in particular in their performances, they want to get to the point really quick because they're concerned about how the audience feels. This particular presentation is using the boredom that comes with dealing and shuffling to its advantage, because it is generating verifiability in the chaos for the spectator. It seems, as you go through this process, there's nothing that could be predicted about it. And just getting sick and tired of that sequence of shuffling and all this stuff. In one respect, although it is kind of boring, in another, it really makes what happens at the end totally impossible in the minds of a spectator. So it's taking advantage of that, which is why it has its name. So if you don't like card tricks that deal with a lot of shuffling and a lot of counting and a lot of dealing, do this one anyway, because it's the trick that is self-aware. It knows, the trick knows that it's dull for 80% of the time. And then that remaining section there, that last bit, is just a big wow factor to it. So this is the very basic premise. Normally you would do this with a pre-arranged stack of cards, and you would do this in 2 piles of shuffling. So I didn't have a written prediction. I'll just tell you what the prediction would say. The prediction would say that there's 14 red cards. Your prediction, by the way, could have a very specific outline. It could say 14 cards, in 2 7 hands that are very specific to a 7-card handed game or something like that. I mean, you can have an exact set of 14 cards or any number that you want, okay? It doesn't really matter. But in our case, it's going to be 14 red cards. Another phase of it is going to be that the remaining cards are black and the same suit, except for one card, which is the Ace of Spades. Your prediction can be that specific. It can say the Ace of Spades is the one, which I saw Dan White do a variation of this on who was it on? Jimmy Fallon. Actually, a family member of mine at a recent get-together asked me if I'd seen this. It was actually posted, it was put on TV a couple of years ago. And I said I hadn't seen it, I had to look it up and see it. And there's a few really good nuances that he used that I'm going to address here when we talk about the shuffling phase of it. But his was so specific at the end that he had a card with a prediction that was done days in advance on Twitter, a photograph of the card or of the ID of the card with somebody else that was there for the performance. So you can be that specific. You can be specific on the identity of every single card in the outcome. So this is my prediction. 14 cards are red. The remaining cards are all clubs, are all the same. You could say clubs if you want, except for the ace of spades. And that gives us a total of 21 cards. So our 21 cards are going to be the ones face down in the end. So that's our prediction. 21 cards are face down, 14 are red. The remaining cards are all clubs except for the ace of spades. Okay, so that would be my outline prediction. These cards need to be together in a stack. They can be shuffled. If you're doing this prepared, it is better if they are shuffled together. Not with the other cards, but shuffled as a group. The reason for that being is that you want this group of cards to look like it's nothing special. Okay, like there's no order to this at all. So you want it to be shuffled and put together. Some people will do this trick using a joker to indicate the break for those cards. And what they'll do is they'll go through the deck and they'll remove the jokers, and one of those jokers they'll remove will be at the divide and allows them to get a break between those cards, and then they can just transfer the break, and then they can work from there as they make their two piles. But you need to break so that one pile is those cards separate from the cards that are indifferent. Okay, so this is where we're at in the trick. I've got my setup cards, my 21 cards on top with my the cards that I need for my prediction, and I'm going to separate at the break that I have there. Either I have the break decided by some jokers or whatever. I could count them out if I wanted to and say I need it roughly the same, and I could count groups of 3 or 6 or something like that or 7 rather, until I get to my 21, and then I make my two piles. So this is the kind of the traditional rendition of this, which again can be very specific if you're doing this preset. So I've got two piles that are roughly the same. It's actually a little bit off here. You can do more cards if you want it to be closer, and then what you're going to do is you're going to do some shuffling. So one thing I do is I want to verify that the groups are shuffled together. So I just shuffle these cards, and it'll make this is actually has an application when I get to the impromptu version of this, which is a little bit more complicated. But I shuffle them together to start with, and then you can ask the spectator to take some cards from one side, pick them up, and turn them over, place them with the other side, and then the same over here. Now, I just want you to understand in principle what's happening. I'm going to take cards from this side, which all these cards are going to end up facing the same way in the end, and all of these cards are going to end up facing the same way in the end, okay? But I'm going to take some cards from this side, and I'm going to turn them over and set them over here. And I'm going to take some cards from this side and turn them over. So far, just be aware, these cards are going to be mixed together, and they are correct. These cards are facing one way, these cards are facing another, and nary the twain shall meet. They will not mix together such that any one of these cards are facing the same way. So far you should be following along in this logic. Now, traditionally, these would just be riffle shuffled together. On that Dan White presentation, I thought this was really clever, and my family member there was pointing out to me how good this looked, just presentationally, that he did a table wash when he put them together. And this is really off-putting, especially for magicians who might be familiar with shuffleboard. Just seeing that just makes you feel like the rules have been violated to make the trick work. So, doing a table wash kind of a shuffle can be very, very effective in this kind of trick, because it does not matter if the cards change position. It just matters that they are maintaining their right orientation. Okay, so now I've got cards that are face down over here that need to be face down against cards that are face up that need to be face up. They're opposing each other. Now think about this logically. If I take cards from this side, let's say half again, and I turn them over, what I will have is that the cards that were originally face down over here are now going to be face up, and they align perfectly with the cards over here that are now face up, that were face down over here. So all of my cards that are face up in this pile and face up in this pile are part of my original 21 cards. All the cards that are face down in this pile and face down in this pile are part of the remaining cards that are indifferent. So I can do that. And if I take cards over here and I turn them over this way now, cards that were originally face down from this pile, my original 21, are in this pile, and they are face down. And the cards that are face up in this pile that were originally face up or face down over here are now face up with the other cards from this. Hopefully you can understand the dynamics of this. I can push these together as long as I'm flipping my piles as I change sides. I'm okay. Now, in the end, you do need to do one last bit of business. I need to get my cards over here turned over. And what this will do is it will take my original 21 cards that are in this pile, and it will reorient them facing down. Likewise, it will take my cards that are indifferent from this pile originally, and it will get them facing up. So these cards that are facing down, I want facing up, to line up with these cards that are facing up, which are originally from this side. I want the cards that are facing up over here to be facing down, so they're lining up with the cards over here that were originally facing down. Okay? So the way I do this is like this. I pick the piles up, and I turn this pile over. Okay? And then I'm in a position where I can say some cards are facing up, some cards are facing down, and I can turn them together to reorient them. Okay, so just again, this is what it was to start with. I pick them up, I turn this side facing the wrong way, and then I turn both of them facing the way that I need them to be. So in that motion, I'm really just flipping this side, and the spectator can kind of lose track of what's going on there. Now I can do one more table wash, and really I can fairly put these together. Self-working. This trick is totally self-working. There are no moves involved in this at all. The only thing I needed to do was make sure that my original 21 cards were separated out in their own pile. Okay, again, it doesn't have to be 21. It can be any number that you want, roughly half. And right now the trick is done. You can see that everything looks good. I think this looks great, following that Dan White nuance to show things really chaotically out of order, not square together. And then I can square up my cards and then do my revelation. So my revelation was that 21 cards are facing down. I count through my face down cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and it comes out the way I explained. Okay, so these are my original 21. They're out of order, but it's my original 21 that were set up in the stack. Now, the next part of the prediction was that 14 cards are red. So what I do is I turn them face up to myself, and then I just put the red cards down, and I put my black cards down over here. So I count them out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 cards are indeed red. Then the next phase in the prediction, to verify that these are all red and these must be black, these cards are all clubs. The remaining black cards are all clubs, and then I fan those out. And just by coincidence, it happened that the spade ends up on this end. Sometimes it'll end up over here. And this can look good. It says that the remaining black cards are clubs. And then I turn it this way and say, oh no, well that's not right. Hey, look, I did pretty well. I got pretty close, right? These are all clubs. And then the last part of the prediction, except for the ace of spades. And again, you can be that specific. You can be that specific with every single one of these cards. These are a very precise set of cards that you have stacked up at the beginning that are going to come out at the end. So make your prediction as precise or as vague as you want it to be. Again, the more precision, the more amazing this can look. So that is shuffleboard in a nutshell, the very basic rendition of it without any of the nuance that Simon Aronson wrote about or so many others. Now, there are some others who wrote about shuffleboard as an impromptu trick. I know Harry Lorraine has a version of it. I've never read his. I'm not sure what it is. I don't have the book that it's in. I've got his other books, but I don't have that particular trick. So I'm not sure what he does in an impromptu setting, but I would assume it probably has to do with getting some kind of stack on the fly and being able to make some predictions. Let me show you what I did to make this impromptu. We have to add another phase, really another effect to it that will help us accomplish an impromptu stack to get to the end. So impromptu shuffleboard requires that you make a stack in front of the spectator. Now, let's think about this for a moment. If you were going to do the classic rendition, that would mean that you would have 20-some cards that would need to be stacked together with verifiable truths that fit your prediction. The more specific your prediction, the harder it is to make the stack. The more vague your prediction, just so many red cards, so many black cards, whatever, that's a little bit easier to manage. The more cards that you have to do, the harder it is to get it together. The fewer cards that you have in your prediction, the easier it is to do. And there is a way to do this with smaller packets of cards. Again, I refer you to the Dan White presentation. He used a smaller number. Now, his was not impromptu, but that can be used to your benefit. As long as you keep track of what you're doing and you use a little bit of equivoque and the choices that the spectators are making, you can kind of guide and direct the shuffling so that you can keep a small packet separate from other packets and make it work. So we're going to make an impromptu stack of just, I can't remember what I did. I guess I had 15 cards. So my prediction was 15 cards were face down. So we need to get an impromptu stack of 15 cards. In my stack, 15 cards are part of the stack. 9 of those cards are red, and the remaining cards are black and one suit. And notice I said black cards are the same suit, but I didn't say what suit. So I left myself an out there to be able to make that stack of cards whatever suit was more, whatever was opportunistic at the time. Whatever the best opportunity gave me in the stack, I could just go with that, okay? So the remaining, I guess it would be 7 cards are all the same suit except for 1. So 6 cards are the same suit, and 1 card is the opposite suit, but it is not a particular card. This is a non-specific prediction, okay? But specific enough that it's pretty amazing. So I need to make that stack, 15 cards in total that I'm going to have to stack. Here's what I did. I gave some story about shuffling, right? And I demonstrate that an overhand shuffle lacks what I call verifiability. You can see that the cards appear to be shuffling, but you can't really know for sure because all the cards are the same on the back. On the other hand, if I shuffled face up, I would be able to verify as I'm shuffling that the faces are changing. Now, here's what I'm really doing. What I did is I went to the first black card that I could get, which in this case is a king of clubs. It doesn't matter. It just matters that it's a club. And I thumbed that card off and put it on the top of the deck. And as I'm explaining this, and this takes a little bit of mental gymnastics because you're talking about something and you have to count a little bit. I need to count 6 cards. Is that right? How many do I have in here? 15, 9. I need to count 6 total cards here. The first one is going to be the odd one out. So that's my club. I need to get 5 spades now. Okay. So I'm just going to shuffle until I hit a spade. When I hit a spade, I'm going to bring all of that to the top. Let me show you that again real quick. So I've got my first black card I come to, which is a club. I'm going to put it on the top, just 1 card. Then I'm going to shuffle until I come to a spade. As soon as I hit a spade, I'm going to put that whole packet back on top. This is a call shuffle, face-up call shuffle, which I covered on a previous tutorial. I'm going to thumb off that one, and I've got 1. I need to get 4 more. So I'm going to shuffle now until I hit another spade, and I'm going to pull that one. Then I'm going to shuffle until I hit another, and I can drop larger packets because I know there's no spades in there. I see 2, so I'm just going to thumb both of them. And now I know I've got 4, and I need to get 1 more, so I'm going to go until I get 1 more. I'm going to be frank with you. I probably would never do this for people, okay, unless I was in a very friendly, loose environment, because this is dependent on a lot of, again, mental gymnastics, where you're talking at the same time as you're shuffling. This is probably most powerful in the classic rendition with a stack pre-made. And there's other ways to kind of do that in the presence of people, but not right in front of them. So you can do this not necessarily impromptu, but you could do it in an impromptu setting where you're setting up in front of people, but they don't know that you are. We'll talk about that at the end. Okay. So this is impromptu right in front of people, like, here, shuffle these cards, give them back to me, let me show you something, kind of a thing. So far I've got this. Now what I did on the video, and you'll see it, although there's no way to go back and recall, I spread the cards just to verify that I have everything right. I'm looking for 1 of one suit, and I'm looking for 5 of another suit on the top. Okay, and if you look back at that presentation, you'll see that that's what I did. I know I've got what I need, and I'm ready to go. Okay, so now the next thing that I'm going to do, and I also need to know what this card is. I'm going to need to know where to break at that point, okay? Because if there's a black card sitting next to that, I'll need to know to pull it off and get it in the right place. In fact, let's do that. We'll make it complicated here so that we can address that one issue. So I've got my 6 cards called off to the top. Now I need to get red separated from black so I can get my 9 red cards out. Now, one way to do this is to do a slop shuffle rendition where I am going to be separating my reds from my blacks in the process of doing the slop shuffle. Slop shuffle is like this. I take off the first card, whatever it is, black or red, and I turn it over, and then I pick up the next color in whatever grouping it is, and then I turn it back. So I'm putting all of the black cards on one side and all of the red cards on the other side. And you see what's going on nice and slow. So all the cards are facing each other. It's just that the reds are on one side, the blacks are on the other. So up to speed, this looks like this, where I'm thumbing off these groupings of black and red. And I'm just separating my colors. This is a good way to separate colors right in front of the spectator, and it has motivation. This is a motivated move. Now, I need to pay attention to this because what I want to do, to save myself a little bit of grief, is I want to get my 6 card stack on the red side. Okay, so I'm going to get my last black one there, and then at that king, I'm just going to put my 6 card stack on the wrong side. So these are against the red cards, not the black ones. Okay, now I've got this sloppy kind of situation. This really works only with bordered decks. Okay, because this looks like cards are facing each other and opposing when they're not really. They're actually 2 different halves that are facing each other. I square this up, and then I do my triumph kind of resolution. If you're doing the triumph trick, go look at my triumph tutorial to see how that works. I say there's some cards facing down, some cards facing up. There might be places where cards are face-to-face or back-to-back, and I've been holding them long enough that I've lost track of that spot. But I should get to the place here where I've got my face-to-face cards, right? You break at that place, and then what I want to do is I want to put the red stack on top when I put them together on the table. So now I've got my 6 stacked black cards, all the red cards, the rest of the black cards, and then I can present this at the end of that phase. I can say, well, really, you didn't verify that they were really mixing up right. You can see that I've pulled one on you. This is, these were not mixed up at all. They're all facing the same way. But I want to try something here that we can verify that we're shuffling. Okay? Again, you want this to be sitting out in full view the whole time. Make no mention of it or make a mention of it. It doesn't really matter, but it's important that people can see it from the very beginning. Next, we'll talk about what to do from this point. How we will continue on with our shuffling sequence, which follows kind of the normal shuffleboard demonstration that I showed you a moment ago. But this time we're going to do it in 3 piles with a little bit of magician's choice in there, some equivoque. Again, just to verify where we're at, if I turn the cards over right after that slop shuffle, you'll see that I have all the black on one side, all the red on the other side, and then my stack of 6 that I made. And I did this right in front of the spectator while appearing to be motivated in a different way, okay? So to them, they're looking at face up, face down, and this is a resolution back to normal. Really, I've put the cards in a very particular order that will help me, okay? So we're using the slop shuffle triumph kind of demonstration without selecting a card and whatever as a means to get to a stack. So I've got my red cards over here. Now all I need to do is take my 15 cards off the top and make a pile with those. And that will be my first 6 cards plus the remaining 9 cards together with that. Okay, so if you take a look here, I've got, again, 15 cards face down. That will be these cards here on top. I'm going to take these cards off like this by counting 3 at a time. And you'll notice in the presentation, I left all the warts on my presentation there. I started counting and I lost track and I had to do it again. That's fine. Just do it again. No big deal. I'm just going to count 5 groups of 3 to know that I have it right. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 15 cards, and I'm going to set that down. Then what I did, this is a little sneaky kind of addition. I have a problem because these are pretty well separated red and black, and I don't want a pile to be all red and a pile to be, or mostly red and a pile to be all black. I want them to be mixed. So right after I did that, I just did a shuffle for no good reason at all. I just shuffled the cards together, and because of the situation, it actually makes things pretty right. Okay, even if I have a big chunk of cards that are all the same, this is good enough. Okay, so I just put a shuffle in there, and then I pretended to be kind of counting out half and half. It doesn't really matter, right? I acted like I was particular about it by moving one card. You just need to have 2 more piles that are kind of the same as that. Now we get into Magician's Choice. If they say these 2 piles, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to shuffle them together. Okay, because these can be together. And then I will go on to the classic rendition of a shuffleboard shuffling. Okay, so if they pick the 2 stacks that are not the main stack, I'll just take those and shuffle them together right away. Okay, a slop shuffle, a table wash or a riffle shuffle or whatever. I'm just going to shuffle them together and then we'll move on. If they pick this stack and one of the others, I'm going to get to the shuffleboard demonstration. Okay, so I just pretend like this one doesn't count. I'll do the classic kind of thing. I'm going to take these cards and shuffle them together because they were stacked blacks against reds. So I want it to look legit when I get to it. Then I'm going to shuffle these again just for the heck of it. Okay, and I say I can verify that they're shuffling. Then I'm going to have the spectator take a few cards from over here, about half. It doesn't really matter how many it is. It's better if this is fewer than half, but it can be half. It doesn't really matter. And they're going to turn these cards over. And I'm going to have them do the same over here. And then we do what I explained to you already. We're just going to shuffle these together. Okay, so pretend like this is the original presentation that I gave you where we're shuffling cards. Again, a table wash looks really good for this. And if you want to do it again, you can have them do it again. The more sloppy it looks, the better, as I said. So this is all going to come out right. You just make sure that you flip over your packs whenever you put them together. Okay, so again, this can be kind of table washy. The sloppier, the better, I think. Just looks good. Then I say, of these 2 piles, why don't you pick one? When I do that, I take my remaining stack, which has been shuffled together, and I might shuffle it again real quick just to make sure they're mixed good. I spread these face up because it sets me up for fluidity. If they say this pack, I just take this whole spread and I just shove them together because that's what I want. I want these cards to be facing up because the original cards in this pack, the original stack, are facing down, and I want these opposing those. All the cards facing down over here are part of my 15-card stack. All the cards facing up over here are part of my 15-card stack. So if they say this stack, I leave this spread facing up and I just wash them together. If they say this stack, I say, great, we're just going to take these cards and wash them together. I turn them face up, and then I put them together. So, again, it doesn't matter which way you do it, as long as you know which side this one's going into. Face down for this side, face up for this side. Okay? So I want them opposing my original stack. I want them against whatever these cards were originally. I want them against them. Okay? So, there we go. I've got them now put together. Now we're left where we were at before. I could either do another one of these phases, right? It doesn't matter. Whatever, makes the spectator happy. As long as you turn the cards over when you switch piles, that's all that matters. So in this situation, every card that's in this pile over here that's facing up is part of my 15-card stack. Every card over here that's facing down is part of my 15-card stack. The ones that are facing up are part of my indifferent cards. The ones that are facing down over here are part of the indifferent cards. Now what I want to do is I need to get this stack flipped over so that I can be set with all of my 15 original cards facing down. So I do my move. I pick them up. I say some of these cards are facing up. Some of them are facing down. I've done my flip, and then I just wash them together, and I'm ready to finish the trick with my prediction. So that is shuffleboard using 3 stacks. That's just the way to do it. So there's an equivoque in there to make sure that you're not mixing up your piles in the wrong way. If they pick the 2 indifferent stacks, you shuffle them together without doing any flipping. If they pick the original stack and one of the others, you take one out of the way, you do your shuffleboard shuffling. You take your final stack, they pick where it's going to go. If they want it to go in the original set of 15 or whatever, how many cards you have over here, you want to make sure they're face up so that they're opposing those original face down cards. If they say that they want it to go over here with the indifferent cards, make sure you turn them face down so that they're like those cards and put them together. And we should have this all work out. One last subtlety here. I think it's good when you have this, if you're doing table washes, to do this, because this just looks so good. You would say this is verifiably messed up. This is shuffled. Okay, put them together, square them up. I think after you square, just so they know there's no funny business going on, that you give one more spread and they can see it. Then do your counting, go through it, and just make sure we know what it says over here. See what it has. We have 15 cards face down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. The neat thing about this is that you can have the spectator do it. Okay, so you don't have to deal. The spectator can be the one to deal. Then over here, we got to check and verify that we have what we have in our predictions. It says that of these cards, 9 cards are going to be red. So I go through and I put my black cards down, put my red cards out here and count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cards. Okay, and then the next phase, it says that all of my black cards are the same suit except for one. That's the last part of the prediction. You're good to go. So next we're going to talk about some other aspects related to this routine that you may want to consider as you are setting up your preferred way to perform shuffleboard. So one last consideration, calling your stack. If you're going to do this completely impromptu in front of people, you can call any way you want. If you have a way to call right in front of them and you want to do a spread call, Hofstadter spread call, the Kostya Kimlet kind of, variation on spread calling, you don't need to go through the slop shuffle side of it. You can just call the cards you need, get them to the top, and then get right into it. That's one way to do this impromptu. If you have a really, really good underspread call, you might do that on the pretext of demonstrating that all the cards are different. Just call out your small stack to go on the top, and then you're ready to go. You can start your 3-pile rendition that way. Likewise, you can use any method of calling nearby the spectator. So maybe you have control of the cards and they can see you. You could just spread or angle separate the cards that you need and then cut them in where you want them, or do your underspread call. So you can call the cards and organize your stack separate. I actually have a tutorial online there on the channel about setting up in front of a spectator, which doesn't necessarily mean doing it right under their nose. You can use calling methods that are quick and efficient that can be done near spectators around them, but they're otherwise not aware that you are doing anything. It looks like very, very meaningless kind of card handling. It doesn't look like you're putting anything in order. So if you want to just spread call out your reds and your blacks or whatever, come up with a prediction that fits your ability. All right. So this prediction I came up with after I determined what can I do to get my cards in order right underneath the spectator's nose. How specific can I be? Well, I know I can get so many black cards. I know that I can make one of them the wrong suit. And I know that I can do black and red separation, which means that I can get this prediction. I can't really get more specific than that. It's definitely specific enough to be amazing, but I couldn't get more specific than that right under the spectator's nose. Whatever you can do under the spectator's nose is what you can do. Whatever you can do near or around the spectator to put an order together, that's what you go with. All right. So just a consideration is how you get your stack put together if you're going to do it impromptu. Honestly, again, if I'm doing this for people, I'm just going to put the stack together separate and be very specific and give them a really good show. I think it's more powerful if you can be absurdly specific with it. The nice thing, too, is that if you have a prearranged stack, you can show the cards shuffled at the beginning, and it has no meaning. Use the joker to differentiate where your stack splits, and then you can get a break when you take the joker out of the deck. You can have your stack set and have your stack mixed together. And because of the nature of the trick where you're separating the cards as you're dealing, you can show it faithfully at the beginning as being completely completely shuffled or out of order. You may even do a false shuffle at the beginning of it that helps to sell that fact or that assumption. So that is sort of a comprehensive look at shuffleboard, more than I think some other tutorials give you, and at least a couple of ideas for doing this in a more impromptu manner in front of people with cards that are already in use, borrowing a deck and doing this. This is a great self-working card trick if you just look at the bare bones of it. It's a self-working card trick that top-level magicians do for people. And it's a great self-working card trick that you can add a few wrinkles to it and do for other magicians and really trip them up. If you just get a little inventive and put in some things in there that kind of buck the assumptions about how the mechanics work, you could really fool some magicians, I think, with this trick because they know it. They know how it works. So try to think that through. Find a wrinkle that you can add to it and perform it for people that are in the know. So there it is, shuffleboard. Someone asked recently if I did it. I said I don't. So here it is. I put it together for you to consider. So good luck with that, and I wish you happy magicking.